Hi, Dani. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hello. How are you doing, Julia?
I'm great. Thanks so much for being here. I'm looking forward to our chat, getting a little bit to know you more, but also talking about your journey and a little bit about a niche topic that we actually haven't really covered much of. So I'm looking forward to your take on that. If you would share with our listeners a little bit about what you're currently doing with your IHP certification, and then we can kind of back it up, talk about maybe how you got there and what's happened since.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of hop on and inspire other coaches and maybe find some clients via here. What I'm currently doing right now is I'm actually doing bioresonance testing. So this is something that is not necessarily taught within IHP, but I definitely feel like IHP has given me the building blocks and the kind of a stepping stone for me to be able to pursue something like this. And down the road, I definitely hope to kind of blend some of these different testing and kind of modalities for clients to be able to really offer, the entire standard of care, right? Be able to offer all these options to clients. But bioresonance is a little bit of I would say, newer topic for people out there. I don't think a lot of people are familiar with it unless you've kind of just found it on your own. I know a lot of people find the company that I'm working with right now via Instagram. But bioresonance is basically energy-based testing. It can kind of, in a similar way to functional medicine testing that we do with IHP, it can kind of go beyond the blood work, we like to say, and really find things at not only that physiological, like physical state and where we're experiencing symptoms, but prior to that, biochemical stage and energetic standpoints too. So it's been really cool. It's definitely been a lot to be thrown into for sure, because there's just a lot to it. There can be so many markers coming up, but it's kind of helpful, for me being a practitioner and clients coming in to kind of unpack everything, make some connections, which with being an integrative health practitioner, I'm taking a very integrative approach, and I'm wanting to find, pathways between the body, meridian weaknesses, right, that I can kind of put into this could be a root cause for what your symptoms are presenting with. So that's what I'm currently doing right now. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And before that, were you always kind of in the health and wellness space? Were you doing something else? What kind of led you to IHP? What was your journey to the point where you're at now?
Yeah, well, that's a little bit of a longer answer, I will say. But I think ultimately I found IHP from kind of dealing with my own health issues. Everything started back literally when I was like 2 years old. I had dealt with really full body welts and went to countless of doctors. Like nobody knew what was going on. Creams after ointments, after creams, after ointments, like everything, all the topical things. No one suggested what I was eating. No one wanted to look at my toxin load. No one wanted to do any further testing. And of course, I was like, again, from 2 to about 12 years old, 13 years old, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just coming with my mom to all these doctors. I'm like, I don't know, Mom. But, and not to, need sympathy or anything, but I also was a competitive swimmer at the time too. So we're talking my full body was out, and I don't think, kids are really resilient. So I don't remember at least a lot of like insecurity within myself until I would say about like age 8, age 9, kind of getting into those preteen and teen years that, kids started commenting and like asking, what was wrong with me? And I felt like that insecurity. And so that was something that I didn't expect to deal with so early in my life. And I really was looking for answers. And it wasn't until about age 13 that my mom was like, well, let's try a different type of doctor. Let's try a naturopathic doctor. And that was the first time my eyes were kind of open to this just newer to me field, right? But in reality, this is the medicine that's been for generations past, right? And they recommended going gluten-free. They found out I was really, really sensitive to gluten. They also recommended a little bit more of a plant-forward diet. That was it, though. That was the only recommendations I got. And I was like, I don't know, I'm 13, though. I'm kind of getting, more aware of things, definitely wanting to get rid of this, kind of heading to high school years. I did not want to go through that. And within 2 weeks, the welts dissipated about halfway, and a month, like completely gone after 10 years. It was incredible. It was it was the gateway into this field of medicine and just health in general. There was a couple other times, I think I was about 15 or so, severe case of laryngitis, was put on prednisone, nothing. I was a singer at the time. So I feel bad like thinking about this. I was so wanting to compete in this talent show at my high school. And I was like, give me anything, give me the prednisone, that completely like killed my liver, which we need liver in, bile production and such for the need to digest fats and such. And so I was realizing that anytime I had really fatty foods and such, it would come directly out of my skin, which is, our largest excretory detox, organ basically. And so kind of learning about all of this and just the connections, right? Why would I have a skin issue based on laryngitis? It was just a whole thing going on there. But I ended up curing the laryngitis on my own by literally eating a raw onion like an apple. I'm not kidding. That was kind of extreme for sure, but it worked. It was within like 12 hours, voice was back, nothing, no inflammation there. I've never had it since. So I was just like, food as medicine was kind of the introduction for me into this, and then learning a little bit more about our toxin load and different types of testing that we can do, and mold and parasites and all these things that, no one really talks about nowadays. Kind of came into the picture for me. But I kind of still, even in my education and my career journey, I was like, no, I still want to go. I knew I wanted to be in the health field of some kind. So I was like, let's go to PA school, physician assistant school, or even regular medical school. And it was actually my fiance's mom, my fiance at the time, I say at the time, we're getting married, so he will be my hubby, but sounds like we broke it up. No. My fiance's mom was like, it's kind of weird, she's very like natural, very like, root cause, very simplistic health, but she wants to go to PA school, which I feel like it's just kind of like presenting with symptoms. Here's a supplement, or, we need to get you to surgery. Doesn't really sound like it aligns with her. I hadn't really thought about that, to be honest. Like, I just kind of was hoping that I could do a little bit of an integrative approach. And I think there are people absolutely that are doing that. But she really opened my eyes, and I was like, maybe there is a different way of doing this. And at that point I had found naturopathic medical school. And my mom had helped, and she was like, this was the doctor that recommended this however many years ago, maybe you can go this route or whatever. So I ended up moving across country to Oregon. I was from New Hampshire. So I moved cross country to Oregon to go to the National University of Natural Medicine. And I actually completed my bachelor's degree there. They have kind of a, you start, at whatever. So I started in a college in Massachusetts. And then I did my first 2 years there and moved here for my third and fourth year, and graduated with my bachelor's of science in integrative health science. And that was a great stepping stone for sure. But throughout my time there, I realized that that's not necessarily what I wanted to do. And even not that that's a bad path by any means, there's definitely people, going down that route. And I think it's incredible. But for me personally, there were just various reasons I was like, I think there's an even better way out there, better thing for me. And even just simple things in my lifestyle. I was like, I want to be home. We have our fur baby. His name is Oakley. And I want to, be a mom. I want to have time. I want to work remotely. I didn't think, going through 4 years of med school, a lot of people are working in person. They're working that 9 to 5. And again, that's great. It just didn't quite fit my lifestyle. I wanted a little bit more flexibility. I wanted to travel. Also just price points, right? And my finances and such, that would be a huge burden to take on, a huge time commitment. And I mentioned getting married at the end of the year. I have all these different things that I'm planning for. So I was like, well, let's do some research. And actually through one of my friends, I found IHP, and I was sold. I will say the biggest thing for me through looking through different certifications and finding, which one you align with most, I loved the truly integrative approach that IHP offers, in the sense that you're not just learning naturopathic medicine or, Chinese medicine. You're learning all these, sorry, just hit my arm there. You're learning all these different types of modalities. I think there's 7 in total. And I was like, this is insane. I love this. I love the actual integrative approach there. And I think the more knowledge you have, the more you can give to clients. And so that's how I found IHP. I found that actually directly after I graduated with my bachelor's. I graduated July of last year, I was starting IHP, and I was like, let's go, let's do it. So yeah, long answer for sure with that question, but that's how I found IHP. Oh, and what I'm doing, what I did prior to Bioresonance. So completing IHP 1 in September. And then I did find the Bioresonance right pretty much after I'd interviewed there. But I'll say in the interim with training for that company and such, I was honestly looking at healing myself even more, just optimizing my health, my family. I mean, Dr. Cabral talks about this all the time: heal yourself, heal your family, then work with clients if you want to. Like, it's that order of operations. So really working on, just different toxins that maybe I was being exposed to, working my way, trying to be 1% better each day, to be able to improve my health, working with family and such. And that's kind of something we can talk about a little bit later. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing and what I'm up to now.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's, one of those things where, and I've talked about this on a prior episode, I don't know if it's aired yet, but when it comes to, the titles or we think, okay, this is what I want to do. So like, I must need to be a PA, or I want to help people a lot. So I need to pay a lot of money to go to school. Right. Whereas if I think a lot of the, quote unquote, integrative practitioners that I know that are helping the most people, some of them are just, and I don't mean just, but they're IHP certified. And they haven't gone to naturopathic school. They're not functional medicine doctors per se, right? And they're doing incredible work with clients. And like you said, it gives the flexibility. You can work remotely, naturopathic, certifications and doctoral. Sometimes you can only practice in certain states. And like you said, you need to be in person, right? So there's so much flexibility. And I think, in addition to that, you learn so much. There is so much information that you learn to help clients that it is, it's a great route for so many people.
And I'll say too, I was someone that I wasn't even new. Like, I didn't come from a completely different field into IHP, and you can definitely do that. But for me, I came from, I became a nursing assistant in high school. I was definitely, taking all the anatomy classes and everything, got a bachelor's degree in integrative health science. And I still learned arguably the most in IHP, in my IHP certification that I would say I did in my bachelor's degree. Like, that's how much information is jam-packed in there. I don't say that lightly. Like, I'm a very honest person for people that know me. So I recommend it, to everybody seriously that I meet. It's just incredible. And it's been such a great, useful tool with helping to find clients and also feeling confident with clients too. I feel like I'm even someone, I think we all to some degree have dealt with imposter syndrome. But really, one thing that I was at the IHP conference in October of last year. And one thing, I forget who exactly said it, but it was like, you just have to be one step ahead of your clients. They're just coming to you for guidance, right? If you're 10 steps ahead, great, but just be one step ahead of them, be that sounding board for them, be that support, be that guide, and they will install their trust in you and you'll be able to change lives. Right. And so I kind of took that home. And another thing actually that was said there, because that was just chock full of knowledge too, was they said, be the practitioner that you wanted as a patient, right? Be what you didn't get per se. And I feel like I didn't get a lot, honestly, when I was younger. I worked with nice people. They wanted to help, but it just wasn't helpful. And I felt like wasn't really listened to, a little bit of gaslighting too. And so heading into this field, I was like, I want to squash all of that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. When we can kind of be, I believe that there's a certain amount of kind of healing, right, that can come to us from being something that we never got, to somebody else. That can be incredibly powerful. And it's so interesting that they just like really all you did was take out gluten, right? And just as much as food can be medicine, food can be poison for certain people, right? And clearly like that was quote unquote poison for your body. And I think that there's, it's up for debate. What were maybe you reacting to? Were you reacting to the pesticides and all the glyphosate that they now spray on wheat, right? Or was it just the gluten? Either way, obviously it was a great recommendation, but people, can either quote unquote heal themselves with food in the sense of, you ate an onion and laryngitis went away, or they can be perpetually making themselves more ill by choosing the wrong things. And sometimes it's just as simple as pointing that out. Like all these doctors you saw, right? Hundreds and thousands of dollars that they probably spent on medical school and residencies. And they might've been, in practice for years. And they couldn't even tell you that tiny, small bit of information to take the debilitating welts off of your body. It's crazy when you think about it.
And crazier than that is no one even asked about food. Like food fuels like pretty much every process that goes on in our bodies. We're eating 3 to 4 times a day. Like it literally makes up our bodies. And I was never asked about it. And if I was, it was like, how was your diet? And I'll be like, good, cool, moving on. What does good even mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. And it's like, again, I don't fault anybody. I know there was a statistic out there. I don't know if it's changed, but it was like, allopathic doctors, they get like 20 hours or not even that of nutrition, training. So I don't fault them. It's just not a part of, and they learn so much more, right? They're definitely doing hard work and such, and they're definitely learning. And there's a time and a place for that type of medicine. Absolutely. But in my case, it was more of like a chronic health issue as opposed to an acute, emergency need or surgery need. And that's why I feel like I wasn't getting support in that realm, in that field.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would love to do next is switch gears a little bit and talk about what your focus, where you feel like you're, making your future business, what you're doing right now, the most successful by focusing on, like, what's your niche? How does that look? And what's your kind of vision for the future?
Yeah, I've definitely, I've gone through and I'm the person, again, you talked about titles. I'm like, well, what's my title going to be? What's my specialty going to be? Like, I have to figure all these specific things out. And I've definitely wanted to to sound the best. And then I'm just like, well, what have I dealt with? Right. And really what I keep coming back to with myself, with my family, with what I've been doing with clients now is kind of creating some sense of harmony between quality of life and quantity of life. Because we hear a lot, allopathic medicine and more modern medicine, they can lengthen your life, and that's great. That's great. But sometimes the quality of life is slipping. And, for me, I'm at a point in my life where my grandparents are starting to get up there in age, and I want to support them. I don't actually know what started this, but I found the blue zones, which are basically cultures and communities all around the world that are consistently producing centenarians. So these are people living, closer into their 100s with very minimal disease. They're living longer, happy, healthier lives. And I was like, you can't really deny that. You know what I mean? That's like, there's so many PubMed studies out there that you could be like, they can tailor the data to this. They can tailor the data to that. You can't, this is observational research. You can't really deny that these people are still up and cooking and loving life. And I'm just like, I want that. And for as long as I can remember, I'm like, I'm going to live. I don't know where this number came from, Julia. I don't know. I think since I was like 6, I'm like, I'm going to live till I'm 102, like not 100, just 102. Oh. I don't know why it's not 105, 106. It's 102 at least though. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to get there? How am I going to support my parents who are, into their 50s and grandparents who are approaching 80s or in their 80s? So longevity of life and just, diet sustainability, right? Not even diet, but just lifestyle sustainability. What can you carry on? What can you do day to day? Because it's not what you do once a month. It's what you're doing every single day that's actually going to impact. And so that's kind of been my niche and what I've been focusing on and what I want to continue to focus on. And I guess the next step furthering my education in that field is I actually did just sign up for the high performance health new certification with IHP Naturopathy and Dr. Cabral, which I'm very excited about. I think it'll kind of blend the knowledge that I've already kind of accumulated from different areas and kind of add some more to that, just to be able to offer everything. And I never really imagined going into this specialty. And again, I'm not really sure the set time or what kind of pulled me into this, but I just consistently come back to longevity and what are people doing to live the longest and the happiest, healthiest lives? Because I feel like, again, quality of life is really what's slipping right now for a lot of people. They're managing, they're getting by, but they're not thriving, and they're not, we're seeing just a lot of chronic illness take, some of our loved ones sooner than needed. Right. I do think there's more time on this earth for people. And so that's kind of been where my niche is headed for sure. And I have definitely some personal projects, I think, and different programs that I want to create for people in my own business in the future. So people can stay tuned to that for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where even though modern medicine is providing, lots of quote unquote longevity or longer, like with medication and whatnot, you make a great point in the sense that is length, right? But what does the quality of that look like? Do they have, 16 different side effects from the medication that's, keeping their heart from stopping, or, and if they actually addressed heart-based or lipid inflammation with nutrition and exercise, they could extend their quantity and their quality, right? It sounds like you're equally passionate about the quality as much as the quantity. And that really is, I think, especially in the United States, right, with people on standard American diets, that's the one thing that is, I think, so frustrating for a lot of people. And so many people don't know that there's other ways. They don't. We in this IHP community, I think we can kind of get in our bubble and we think that, like, how does everybody not know this stuff, right? But I have conversations with people all the time and they're like, really? What the seed oils? What's a seed oil? And I'm like, sunflower oil. It's in like chips and cookies and crackers. And they're like, oh, really? Is that bad? And they think they're doing a healthy thing because they're cooking with olive oil. And it's like, actually, no, you shouldn't be cooking with that, but it's good raw, right? There's all these little things that people just don't know. And if they were simply educated a little bit more, which is really where health coaching comes into play, right? It's not like kick your doctor to the curb or get off your medication, but have somebody in your corner who's focused on more of the holistic side of things so that you're kind of giving this well-balanced approach to your longevity and eating better and moving better and addressing all the foundations that really were meant to help us thrive as a human being species.
Absolutely. I know. I found myself saying that a lot and just kind of, expecting people to know what I know, because again, I look at my Instagram and I'm scrolling through and it's all these health accounts, right? And I'm always in that realm. Mm-hmm. And so, even just out with people and they're just like, oh yeah, I had like pizza 5 times a week. I'm like, oh, okay. And they're just like, what? There's nothing wrong with that. It's balanced. It has meat and cheese and bread and, there's some vegetables on here. And I'm just like, and I'm not even judging or anything there. It's just like, oh, there's really this lack of education here. And that's something I've always said about myself, and kind of what I use my professional Instagram for is just a place for education and inspiration. And I mentioned that to do 1% better, right? We're not going to fix all the things. And I would rather clients adopt one new healthy thing. Maybe it's, dry brushing for lymphatic drainage. Maybe do that. Nail it for like at least 3 days, 3 weeks, right? We go through that process of neuroadaptation at that 21 to 30 days. So you really start to, engrave these things into your brain, create a habit out of it. I would rather someone do one thing at a time and then add to it, as opposed to be like, well, okay, we're doing all the things and then it doesn't work out. They get some maybe negative detox symptoms. I'm like, I'm out. This is awful, so taking it one step at a time, meeting people where they're at, I think is so critical to actually achieving those long-term results.
Yes. Yeah, because some people are ready to go all in. And I can tell within the first, honestly, 5 minutes of talking to somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Are they the all-in type? Are they skeptical? Do I need to go slower? What are they going to kind of be open to and successful with as far as like what I implement, right? Because if you give somebody 2 things to do and they're successful with that, versus if you give them 15 things to do and they're not successful with any of those, you might as well just give them 2 things, right? Your 2-item plan is better than your 15 I always say the plan you're going to stick to is the better plan. And so understanding what clients can kind of handle, how new are they to this? Have they been doing it for a long time? And some clients, honestly, even who are new to it, are just like, I'm all in. Like, I trust you, give it to me, I'll do it. Right. And then some are just, you need to move slower. Maybe some have even been in the functional medicine space for a long time and stuff hasn't worked. Right. So they're even though they're familiar with it, they're skeptical. So you go slower. And it really is all about being able to kind of read your clients and meet them where they're at, for sure.
Yeah. It's very bio-individual. Like, everyone's going to be different for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm curious, as far as like the longevity stuff is concerned, and if you're talking with your own like family members, maybe it's parents, maybe it's grandparents, or, people that are close to you, are you finding that it's a kind of hard population to, a tough nut to crack, so to speak, with really older generations? Maybe I would say like above 65, 68. My mother would kill me if she like knew I was putting her in an older generation. But the truth is, when these baby boomers that were, brought up on like no seatbelts, drink out of the garden hose, it's kind of like, oh, what, like this bread isn't good for me? I mean, come on, I did a lot worse than that. Right. So are you finding that it's a hard population to reach, as far as getting them not to necessarily do anything, but to just be open to absorbing the information the wealth of knowledge you have to share?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I actually think you still have a lot of hope, I would say, which sounds terrible, but a lot of hope with people the 60s, maybe even 70s, depending on kind of where their health is right now. But like I mentioned very briefly, I became a nursing assistant in high school. And so I was actually in kind of elderly care, long-term care facilities. I did start out with dementia, which really at that point, you're just hoping kind of for quality of life, kind of managing things at that point. But I also worked with independent living. So these are people that are still kind of really functional up top. They can, have those conversations and everything. And I got close with one woman, and she was 89 when I started working with her. We worked together for a couple of years up till she was 91. That was the toughest nut to crack. She was, of course, that age. She was Jewish. She was from New York, like upstate New York. I'm like, like I wasn't getting very far. She was definitely receptive to a couple of things, because for her, what I was mainly doing was I was cooking, I was cleaning, I was kind of helping her with just everyday tasks. And she was very, very open to what I was doing. I was actually fully vegan at the time, but I wasn't, of course, pushing that on her. I was definitely pushing some more plants and less processed foods. And again, which we mentioned earlier, meeting people where they're at, starting with, I say replace, not restrict. So, if there's a bread that she likes, maybe swapping it for another one. We did it a couple times. Some breads work, some breads, she was like, that's disgusting, throw it out, But I think with anything, having the education for people, not just telling them what to do, not just telling them that's bad. Oh, you've been doing that for 40 years. That's not going to be good. Like actually, presenting it with, hey, there's some newer research out there saying that maybe this could be a little bit more supportive, and also she was on a lot of medications at the time. And I was actually able to help work with her doctor. I actually wasn't even an IHP at the time. I was a certified holistic nutritionist. I was in my bachelor's program. But the doctor was kind of open to my suggestions. I was like, well, she's taking this thing for, bowel movements, helping those to become easier. She was taking something for sleep. She was taking a muscle relaxer. And I was like, you ever tried magnesium? How are her magnesium levels? Like taking away 3 medications just for maybe one supplement. I mean, all of us could honestly use a little bit more magnesium. I hate to do the one size fits all, but that's something that could be depleted so easily in the body. And so it was nice. She was kind of receptive, but again, that was the toughest nut to crack. But for, my parents and such, they've been really open to it. I think it really depends on the person, but it is tough when you are doing something for so many years and, you're still alive, you're still cooking. But I always say being alive is one thing, thriving and like actually having the energy to get up and play with grandkids or great grandkids, even, walking around, again, these people in the blue zones, they're up, they're moving into their 100s, they're swimming. They're getting vitamin D from the sun. Like what we experience a lot here in the US is not necessarily, I mean, other countries too, but it's not necessarily the normal or what has to be. We see these cultures, we need to follow, kind of what they're doing. And just for people listening, maybe that aren't familiar with the Blue Zones, just because I've mentioned them a couple of times, some of the things that they're doing is, they're eating primarily plant-based. A couple of them do have some high quality animal products in there. They're sleeping really well. One thing that's interesting that not a lot of people talk about is they're actually eating to about 80% fullness. So they're not eating to that 100% full the brim, be stuffed. They're leaving a little bit of room. They're eating slower, right? They're making their meals last. They're gathering, they have community, healthy relationships. They're waking up each day with a purpose, right? My purpose is, even if it's literally, I got to water the garden. I got to go, see Cindy down the road. Like that's a purpose. That's something that gets you up and out of bed. I think we overcomplicate it. We're like, gosh, what is my God-given purpose? I need to do incredible things. I need to change the world. And we can, that's awesome. But we don't need to, go crazy about that, right? Even the littlest things, for me, I wake up and I need to be the best fiance to my future husband. I need to be the best mom to my fur baby, Oakley. I need to be the best for my clients, right? I need to be the best for me. That's my purpose. I always remind myself of that. But there's, people wanting to look into that. I think the Blue Zones are great. I think the high performance health is going to be incredible too for people. I'm just excited for just this field. I think more people are gravitating towards the field of longevity and really, again, blending that quantity and quality of life too. So I'm excited for where it's to go and what I can do with clients and my own health and my family's health too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And the education is so huge in bringing just awareness to people, right? And you can educate without even getting compliance. You can just say like, here's what's been shown, here's what I think, here's what the research says, and just kind of let people sit with it. I've had, even family members where I see them at Christmas and then it's like an entire year and a half later and I see them over the summer and they're like, remember that conversation we were having, last Christmas when I saw you? Like, I think I'm ready. Like, what was that test you said I could run? Right. So people don't forget a lot of those conversations that you have with them and education that you might, post on social media, right? Something resonates with somebody and they come back to it, 6 months later and message you because I think people process all that information in their own time. And, you're there, I'm there, we're all there when they're ready. So.
Yeah, it's a little tricky too, because I do feel like there's definitely still a population of people that they'll wait until a diagnosis comes, or they'll wait until the symptoms become unbearable. And then they'll be like, oh, hey, Dani, what were you saying then, and that's, again, meeting people where they're at, right? If that's kind of their stage and that's how they want to go about things, it's okay. We're always going to be there to support and to help and to kind of bring some life back there and to kind of alleviate some of those symptoms. But there also are going to be people that are like, maybe they've seen somebody kind of go through that way of doing things. They're like, oh, like I want to get ahead of things. I want to take that true preventative approach. So they'll reach out earlier. They'll be the all-in people wanting to do everything. So yeah, it's very, very bio-individual, but meeting people where they're at is so key though. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. I have a mom who's only motivated by vanity. It's like we were doing I tried to get her to do everything. It wasn't until her hair started falling out. The second she told me her hair was started falling out, I was like, this is my in. She's going to finally listen to me because she doesn't want to lose her hair. And so, everybody's motivated by different things in their own time. And it's definitely a process.
Yeah.
If we have listeners that are wanting to, further connect with you or, wondering how to connect on social media, whatnot, where are all the places that you show up? Websites, social media, all that jazz.
Yeah. Couple places that come to mind right now. There's going to be a couple in the works. I don't want to, throw out any secrets yet, but for now, the main place you can find me is my Instagram, which is at wellness_with_Dani. So at wellness_with_Dani. That is the main place. I will get back to posting more consistently Recently, I did grow that platform a lot last year, which I was really proud of. Incredible community came out of that. But I think in the last 6 months, I've definitely kind of taken some time off. I haven't been posting as much, but I do want to get back to a nice schedule because I feel like there's a lot of interaction there, a lot of growth with people just in their own health journeys. And you can touch and reach a lot of people with Instagram, believe it or not. So that's going to be a really great place for just education, inspiration, love, support, a little bit of my personal life, which I find, some people will have just a truly professional account. And I know for me, I kind of want to blend a little bit of my personal side and just me with my professionalism, because I think people can resonate a little bit better with that. So that's kind of the approach I take there. I think I'm also technically on the Integrative Health Practitioner page, so you can find me there. And then I will be working on, like I mentioned, kind of my own things and creating my own website and such, and an email list and all this stuff to come. So like I said, stay tuned for that. Everything will be announced on the Instagram. So if you are not following there, definitely just kind of join that community. You'll get a welcome message from me and everything. So yeah, I think those are pretty much the two places you can find me right now.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success podcast. I'm excited to see what great things you do in the longevity field. And I appreciate you being here and sharing everything that you did with our listeners.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It was good to talk to everybody.
Yes. Thanks, Dani.
Bye.